Good afternoon, audience. Welcome to the Standards Education Talks. My name is Glory Chan and I'll be your host today. We will be discussing how to help students gain a competitive edge when applying to boarding schools abroad, and we're delighted to be joined by Mr. Howard Tuckett, Headmaster of Wycombe Abbey School, Hong Kong, and Mrs. Emily Harrison, Class Teacher and Coordinator of the Secondary and Boarding School Guidance Program. So welcome, Howard and Emily.
Thank you.
Would you like to start by briefly introducing yourselves and the school?
Absolutely. My name is Emily Harrison and I'm a Year 3 teacher at Wycombe Abbey, and I also coordinate Key Stage 2. I also act as a pastoral mentor for those children who are applying to schools, to boarding schools. I've been here since it opened back in 2019. So yeah, 2.5 years.
I'm Howard Tuckett. I'm the headmaster at Wycombe Abbey, and together with Emily, we were on the startup team that started Wycombe Abbey. I was also lucky enough to be part of the design and planning of the team for 2 years before that, while I was still a head teacher in England. And I think one of the reasons why we've both been brought into this role is our expertise and our experience in British boarding schools. I've worked in them as a head teacher and as a teacher and housemaster for years, as has Emily, and I'm sure Emily won't mind me sharing that she was a boarder herself.
Yes.
In a school not so long ago. So together, and with we have many other colleagues as well. We're just two of a team of about a dozen people here, and along with everything else we do as a normal private school teaching national curriculum, British national curriculum in Hong Kong, we also offer this full guidance and preparation program to all pupils to enter boarding schools, mostly in Britain, but in other international locations as well.
Right, so as you mentioned, more and more parents are considering sending their children to boarding schools. What factors do they have to consider when making this decision?
I think the first thing to say is that there are nearly 500 British independent schools, and about half of those offer boarding. And within that range of schools and the huge geographical differences all over the UK, you get all different kinds of boarding. You get full boarding schools that are nearly all pupils board. You get schools where only some pupils board. You get girls' schools, you get boys' schools, you get co-ed schools. You get schools that have primary schools linked to them, other schools that only start at 13, schools that start at 11, schools that are very sporty, schools that are maybe more in the city and not quite so sporty. So there's a whole range of different schools. And I think part of our expertise is in helping parents find their way through this absolute mass of information, which can really be very daunting. And because one of the issues is because a lot of these schools are so old as they are, a lot of them are ancient institutions, been around for several hundred years, most of them at least. They've all got their own weird characteristics and their own very strange way of doing things. There is no one easy way of doing all this. Each school has to be approached differently. And we have that expertise, and it's all part of the fees. Parents don't have to sign up separately for this. We're just doing this and giving this advice and the help all the time.
Absolutely, and I think one of the main things to consider when choosing a school for a child is thinking about where will that child thrive and be happy. It's not necessarily thinking, okay, let's only look at that one school. Let's think about which schools will suit our child and look at their sort of flourishing characteristics of that child and where's going to suit them, not where are they going to be suited to or pigeonholed into. Yeah.
And part of this support is provided by the Secondary and Boarding School Guidance Program, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So to what year level of students is this program offered to? I mean, can any students join?
Absolutely. So because it is such a complicated, or it can be such a complicated, long process, and as Emily said, it's more about matching the child to the school. And that can take a long time for parents to, I mean, basically the more time parents have got to make these decisions, the easier it's going to be. So we start really whenever parents start asking the questions, which is very often year 2, year 3, year 4, quite early on. And that just gives them more time to consider and explore and find out about schools. But really the actual preparation for entry examinations, the preparation for interviews starts towards the end of year 5, early year 6. So at about the age of 10.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it depends. If the child's going to be an 11 plus candidate, it would start as they're turning 10. If they're going to be a 13 plus candidate, it might be a little later on.
Right.
I think what we realise as a school and what we can help with as well is knowing that for each family and each child, it will be totally different. So that journey into a senior school might look very different for each family, whether we support with, you know, academics or supporting with interview help, supporting with, you know, that huge move and transition to a new country. We can make a really bespoke sort of tailored service to those families.
So how often do you guys meet with the families and students?
It really depends on where we are in the phase of the year. So initially I'll meet the parents for sort of fact-finding initial questions and answers. And then depending on how close we are to application time, we'll either meet lots and lots very often, or it could be several months before we meet up again. I really just give them sort of enough information to go away and think. And it's basically the initial guidance is how to read a website, where to find things like inspection reports, where to find the deeper information behind the gloss of a website. Websites are full of great information, but they are essentially marketing tools. And parents really, after the initial information on the website, then need that deeper level of information, and that can take some time to absorb.
And I think we would normally recommend that in normal times rather than COVID times, that those families would go and visit some schools, and you, as not necessarily just the parents but the children, will get that instant feeling, yes, I can see myself here, or absolutely not, I'm a bit intimidated, or this doesn't feel like me. And I think acting on those instincts is really important for families to realise for their child. It's not the parents who are going to go to these schools, it is the child who is going to go to these schools. So it's really important that the child is involved in that journey as well. It's not just a parental decision, especially as the child gets older and, you know, as they're 9, 10, 11 years old, definitely they should be involved in the conversations with the parents and having a look at the websites and going to visit, of course. So in terms of how we support the children in school, I normally meet with the groups of children once a week who are, first of all, intending on going to boarding schools, and we sort of just discuss any sort of excitement or initial thoughts about what is in boarding school or what it entails, and then once we get further down the line in terms of you know, into their application process and academics and interviews, once then they receive an offer, that's when I can really sort of work with them a little bit closer on the particular schools that they have chosen, and we can look at, you know, the details together. You know, what time will you be getting up in the morning? What time will your lunchtime be? What will you be doing at weekends? What will happen at half terms or exi weekends? And we can really get into the nitty-gritty of that particular school that they will be going to, or hopefully going to.
Yeah, so it sounds like you provide support throughout the entire journey, right?
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
So going back to the process, like after the initial consideration stage, during the applications, some schools have different interviews, different exams. How do you prepare students for that?
It's really a case of boiling it all down, because as you say, there's just such a wide range, and what we help parents to do from these very earliest discussions is boil down their choice to probably 3 but no more than 4 schools. And part of that preparation is reading up and finding out from their registrars and admissions officers exactly what that school's schedule is, what their regime of assessments is, their regime of interviews, because as we said, they're all different, but we don't have to worry about the sort of other 497. We just got to worry about these 3. And so we sort of simplify it and boil it down for parents. And so it takes a bit of time. It's really probably one of the most time-consuming things is coming down to that shortlist, which really needs to be, the first one needs to be quite an aspirational school that really would be, the child would be very fortunate to get in there. They're really sort of shooting quite high. Then a nice sort of, the school is absolutely bang on right for that child. And then maybe a school where we know actually this child is pretty much guaranteed of getting in. They're all brilliant schools. They're all very good. It's not like they're a first, second, third choice, but it's a range of likelihoods of success, if you like, basically determined on how many applications each of the schools gets each year on year.
Yeah, so is there a maximum or minimum amount of schools that you recommend students to apply to?
Absolutely. We've talked about this a lot.
Yeah.
I think anything more than 5 would be cruel on a child.
It would be a lot of interviewing, it would be a lot of exams, and too much pressure on a child, definitely.
Yeah, and they wouldn't do well in any of them. So,
yeah.
And choices have to be made, and sometimes quite tough choices. I mean, Hong Kong, like London, where I was before, is very much a brand-based city. People know the names. Yep. And part of our job is to introduce parents, to fantastic schools that maybe they've never heard of before, but that are really a great fit for their child, that are just as good as maybe some of them. For some reason, a few of these British schools are famous in Hong Kong, but I can't understand why, because there are others that are even more famous in Britain that nobody's heard of here. So it's a bit sort of educating parents as well, and giving lots more good news. It's not just about 3 famous names.
Yeah. I think it's sort of helping families realise as well that it's not all about, that exam or training somebody for an interview. I think we need to remind the child as well that the purpose of an interview is just for a house mistress who might be interviewing them, or a deputy head or a head, to see what they are like as a person. That they are not looking for a sort of a rote answer to something. That they're just seeing, is this child charismatic? Have they got a bit of character? Will they fit in? Will they also stand out? So it's just to see what they are like. It's not something that they really need to sort of over rehearse for. I think that would be almost detrimental to an interview process, is over rehearsing. I think it's, that they will try and get out the best in that child through that interview process anyway. They're not there to sort of squash them. They're there to bring out their best side. Yeah.
As Emily says, the schools know exactly what they're looking for. They're looking in the interview to see that spark, that individuality. They know they're also putting together a boarding house of children. They're looking for children who are going to get on well and create a good social vibe. I've sat on the other side of the table. I've been an interviewer, and I'm sure Emily has too, to prospective, and you can tell immediately when you're getting a rehearsed answer.
Yeah,
this
definitely.
month I have read, and children they've learned this thing off pat. Well, you just ask another question, and then suddenly the poor child has learned this answer, got this whole essay off by heart about a book they think they've read, and then you ask them something completely different, and they're thrown, and it's really not fair. So much of what we do is just helping the children to be natural and to flow and to be able to converse, have a conversation with a stranger confidently, elegantly, and to put themselves forward clearly, and to enjoy the experience as well. It's a bit like having your first job interview. It's quite exciting apart from anything else.
Yeah, as a British preparatory school, Wycombe Abbey has an excellent track record of connecting families to top schools in the UK. But what about for students who want to study in countries outside of the UK? What support do you guys offer to them?
Well, quite a lot. So UK is the one we get asked about the most. So we tend to do UK the most. We currently have children applying to several schools in the United States. We've had children move to Switzerland, to Italy, really Australia. Several schools in Australia I've been in contact with in the past. Really, if a parent comes to me and says, our company's transferring us to Finland or something, well, I'll just make it my business to find out. Teachers are teachers and schools are schools. I'll speak to the Finnish school, speak to the head, find out how this is going to work, and we will support them all the way. I think there is an important difference which we do have to explain to parents, that we are their advisors, we can support them, but the schools that are receiving, whether it's in Finland or Britain or America, they will want to speak to the parents and the child. So really it's up to us to support the parents to make that link with the school and make the most of the links that they do get. But we can't do the application for them.
And pastorally, I think whether a child is going to a boarding school in China or a boarding school here in Hong Kong or in the UK or the United States, lots of their pastoral needs or worries will be very similar. It will probably be their first time living away from home, whether it's an hour down the road or a 12-hour flight. I know it may seem very different, but actually lots of their concerns or lots of it will be very much the same. Yeah, right. How we would sort of support that family as well.
Right. So do you have any examples of some of the schools that students here have received offers from?
I do. Carefully. So my current list is our offers. So last year we just started, and our year 5 and year 6 were brand new because the school was only 18 months at the time. Last year we had 2 girls get places to Wycombe Abbey. And although we're a Wycombe Abbey school, our girls don't get any special treatment. They have to go through exactly the same process as everybody else internationally. 4 offers were made to the whole of Hong Kong last year, and we got 2 of them, which we're very proud of. We also got an offer to Cheltenham Ladies College last year and to City of London, the School for Girls. So for our first time out with just a handful of children, we were very proud to have had 4 such prestigious offers. This year we've moved on. We now have 2 year 6s, we've got a big year 7 and a year 8 class. At the moment, we're being interviewed, doing this interview now, at the time when the offers are rolling in, so there are still more to come. But at the moment, we've got 2 offers from Rugby School, 1 from Caterham School, 1 from Cheltenham College, Bryanston, Lancing, Sherborne Girls, Benenden, we've got 2, Rodine, Badminton, we've got 2, Waldingham, we've got a couple, Cheltenham Ladies College, which isn't the same as Cheltenham College, they're 2 different schools, Clifton College, and Mayfield we have as well. So lots of schools coming in, and all sorts of others. A certain Down House we're waiting on.
Oh, right.
And others we're waiting on as well. But this is still, for us, this is probably our first year out, but we're still operating with quite a small group because our school is developing and growing. So I'm delighted that we're getting such good offers. And most of our children who've applied have got an offer from at least one of their schools, or we anticipate that they will. So we don't have anybody who's been bitterly disappointed and got nothing.
Looking ahead, I've heard that Wycombe Abbey School, Hong Kong, is planning to offer an exchange program with its sister schools in mainland China.
Yes.
Can you explain more about what this program is about?
Certainly. Wycombe Abbey International has 4 schools. There's our school in Hong Kong, which is a prep primary school, although we're looking to extend up to year 9 in the next couple of years. In the mainland, we have Wycombe Abbey Changzhou, Wycombe Abbey Nanjing, and Wycombe Abbey Hangzhou. And these are massive, great K-12 campuses, brand new, beautiful campuses. I'm steaming up here. And they offer right through to A level from kindergarten. And so our year 8s get an automatic place. If they want to, they can choose. They can go to any one of those 3 schools, guaranteed place, unless, there is a bit of a caveat. If the child is so academically weak that it would be cruel to send them there, we would probably advise against it. But given that we're a selective school here anyway, that's very unlikely. The only other caveat is there would have to be a place for them to go. But at the moment, like us, these schools are still, none of them are more than 10 years old. So there are generally places because they're still developing. So yeah, any child in Wycombe Abbey, Hong Kong is guaranteed of a place after year 8 in either Wycombe Abbey, Changzhou, Hangzhou, Nanjing. They would need to go and be boarders, but they could do that.
Yeah. So what are some of the benefits of boarding in these sister schools?
Well, first of all, because we're not an international school, we're a private school. So we're here for Hong Kongers and expatriates, but not just for expatriates. So on that basis, most of our families are Hong Kongers of either English or Cantonese speaking home life, who are looking for their children who possibly to be educated abroad, educated in the British or American style, but they're going to make their lives here in Southeast Asia. So to go to a boarding school in a British system in mainland China is probably the best of both worlds, and would offer that complete universal capability for a child to operate in first world business environment in Southeast Asia, China, but be able to do that within a British American background as well. Just really universal skills, I think, life skills. And
at the same time have that really rigorous Chinese Mandarin curriculum, which perhaps in private schools in the UK you would not receive. So as Howard said, the best of both worlds almost.
Yeah, so when it comes to actually attending the boarding schools, what are some of the common challenges students face, and how does Wycombe Abbey help them overcome these challenges?
I think lots of challenges for children going away to a school or to a boarding school would be that change, change from living with your family to all of a sudden living amongst your peers. So what we try and help the children with is learning not only to just fit in, but also stand out. So in terms of fitting in, I mean, learning new skills like not, and it shouldn't be a new skill necessarily, but patience, resilience, how to collaborate with others. Those almost need to be exemplified or amplified, in an environment where you're living amongst your peers and the people that you're working with as well. So I think it's learning to fit in, but then also learning to stand out as well, and being confident enough to be yourself, and to, stand by your morals, your principles, and lots of these schools now will, really help children become the best versions of themselves, and really help them with their character building and teamwork skills, so that they can flourish and be happy and be confident within themselves. So, talking about using skills like growth mindset and knowing how to cope with the failure are all really, really important skills that these schools will be able to help and support with.
I think the other main aspect is the academic one. Parents know that all of these schools, the British independent schools, are academically very rigorous. You've got to be academically competitive to get in. And I think the beauty of our school is that our entire curriculum is a common entrance curriculum. Every child at this school is being prepared as though they were going to a top British independent school, whether they ever go or not. That's the trajectory of curriculum they're on. They're getting exactly the same education here, taught by the same teachers, trained in the same places as if they were in a top British prep school in the UK. So if they don't go to a British boarding school, that's absolutely fine. Probably 2/3 of our children will stay here in Hong Kong, but will still be prepared the same way. So parents don't have to wait for their child to finish a day of school and then dash off to a tutor to get prepared because they're trying to get into a British school. They're being prepared here anyway, all the time, all day, every day, in all the skills: academic, social, interaction, competitiveness, resilience, as Emily was saying, as well as the what appeared to be the softer skills of living in a boarding house, but actually that will become the main part of their life. We also offer, we joke about it, but it really is a serious point, we offer support to mums and dads who actually get increasingly nervous as the date for their child to go abroad comes. They start getting really anxious because they know they're going to miss their child badly. And we offer support there as well because it's a real issue.
Right, thank you, Howard and Emily, for explaining more on the comprehensive and robust support offered by Wycombe Abbey School to students looking to study abroad. But what do parents and students think about all this? Let us hear from Nicola Cheung and her two elder daughters, Lucy and Lily Young. Lucy is currently studying in Year 8 and will be attending rugby school in the UK this coming September, while Lily is in Year 6 and is on course to apply for the same school.
Okay, Lucy, you're leaving us in a few months' time, and tell everyone, why do you want to study abroad?
I want to experience something new and also know how it feels like to be away from my family.
So you're going to a boarding school in the UK. Tell us about how the school in Hong Kong, Wycombe Abbey Hong Kong, has helped you throughout the process.
Instead of going outside and do extra tutoring, this school provides lessons for common entry exams weekly, and I actually took my exam in this school.
Right, I think you did a weekly one, right? And it's after school.
Yeah.
So instead of in the school classes, you go there, I think it was every Wednesday,
Every
right?
Wednesday.
And you did a lot of different critical thinking, analysis, and writing essays and such, right? It's great.
Yeah.
For me, it's quite interesting where, as a parent, I only have to fill up the application form and do the payment. And then I entrusted the school and I left everything for the school to do, which, as Lucy said, includes training her, prepping her into knowing what's going on and preparing for the common entrance exam. At the end of the day, it was actually not the common entrance exam, it was an exam that rugby school has given her. Yeah. And then one more interesting part is that even as of today, that she's already been accepted. So there's Mrs. Harrison who just contacted us. So going forward, before you actually leave for the UK, she'll be here to prep you on how to fit in and to adjust to your new school. So we're all set. Okay, and what do you expect, Lucy? Are you excited? What do you think will happen in the school? I mean, to adjust to a new school.
I am really, really excited. I want it back now.
What are you so excited about? What do you want to find out?
I want to find out who are my roommates.
Right, and what sports are you going? You love sports, right? So what kind of sports you will be entering? You know, in the summer, in the winter, different seasons.
I want to join a team sport, probably netball, because we've done this in the school, and I quite like it. It's pretty fun.
Right. To be honest, as a parent, there are a few concerns. One concern is the safety of my daughter. So luckily, I've heard all these great, things about boarding in UK, and there's discipline, by the housemaster. And one thing is that I really hope Lucy will remember her heritage, that you will not forget Chinese as a language and as a culture, and that you will still miss us while you're away.
Yeah.
And Lily, let's talk about you. Do you know that you might not go to boarding in UK? You might actually be somewhere else. Do you know that?
Yeah. Well,
Tell us about it.
I'm really glad that I have the opportunity to either go study in the UK or study in Hangzhou, Wycombe Abbey School there, because I haven't really thought about it, because I just love this school so much that I can't even think about leaving the school.
Yeah, there is an exchange program offered by Wycombe Abbey Hong Kong, where the students in, I think, year 9 could have a 1-year exchange program in Hangzhou, Wycombe Abbey. And as I mentioned, I'm quite Chinese culture and Chinese language to us is very important, and we don't want Lily to miss this chance. So we'll see how it goes. Maybe we'll see if Lily will follow Lucy's footsteps, or whether Lily will venture into Hangzhou and see what China has offered for her.
Well, thanks for your sharing, Nicola, Lucy, and Lily. And it's awesome to hear about these success stories from Wycombe Abbey. Having looked at the application process from Lucy's perspective as a student, I wonder, Howard, if you could talk more about the perspective of boarding schools, given you've been an interviewer yourself. What are some of the qualities boarding school look for in students, and how does Wycombe Abbey help nurture these qualities?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good question because it varies from school to school. These schools are called independent schools for a reason, and they're all different to each other. They revel in they love their independence, really. And so part of our expertise, and I'm always learning, I know something about some of these schools, but every cycle round I come across a school I've never worked with before, and I have to find out about them. It's the same for both of us. So we're constantly learning. And it's really just never being afraid to ask the question, pick up the phone, get on the email, speak to a registrar or a school or a head of somewhere. And because we're all in the same education world, we've probably heard of each other, we probably know of each other. But a short conversation, what is it you're looking for? How can I help prepare my students? How can I advise my parents? That school advises me, and then I can give my parents really defined, helpful, specific information about that school. And it just demystifies this whole cloud of information about this whole range of schools. I've often said it's easier to get into a British university than it is to get into a British independent school, because you have a universal clearing agency. And you just apply to the agency and then they distribute all the information. We don't have that for the independent schools. The other thing that comes in a lot with our discussions with parents is British day schools, because some people in Hong Kong will move to the UK for the period of their children's education. So we're not just dealing with boarding schools, we're dealing with a lot of day schools. I'm meeting parents to talk about grammar schools, which is another whole section of education in the UK. Also competitive, also very difficult, very, very challenging to get into.
I think I can empathise and totally agree with Howard that these schools are not there to catch you out. They might seem steeped in history and intimidating at first glance, but actually, the people who will be on interview panels are not there to catch students out. They're there, just as we alluded to earlier, to see what type of person your child or that child is going to grow into, and show, so that they can show their potential through that interview as well. And I think there's lots of, as Howard said, thoughts to do with the huge range of schools out there that, are more focused on sport or academics, but actually, these schools will be able to provide a huge range of not only facilities but opportunities as well for the children. So whether it may be known for its academics, it will, my goodness, be so into its sport and music and drama, and there'll be the whole range will be there at each one of these schools. And it's just looking at, which one suits your child.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so much of what we do is helping parents not to fall into common traps. It might be helpful just to talk about what the common traps are. Let's take the word boarding, for example. Well, there is no one thing such as boarding. It varies from school to school. And the kinds of questions we help parents to focus in their own minds is things like, find out from the school how many children from Hong Kong are going to be in that boarding house. Now, it could be that a parent from Hong Kong would like their child to be surrounded by lots of other Hong Kongers. It could be that the parent wants their child to go to the other side of the world to learn about other cultures and to not be with a lot of other children from the same city as themselves. But this will vary from school to school. Some British boarding houses are very heavily populated with children from this part of the world. And at the other end, it could be quite a lonely experience for a child from this part of the world. Some boarding houses pretty much empty out on a Friday night, and most of the children go home because, as Emily said just now, that they only live 50 miles away, so they can go home at the weekends. Other boarding houses, it's 100% boarding all the time, and all the school boards. Sometimes a boarding is only 30% of the school and 70% of the school is day. And then there's another whole dynamic, which isn't a bad thing, because that means the boarders very often get invited out for weekends and can go and do weekends at home with other kids, a more of a normal teenage kind of experience, obviously in the care of a host family. And it varies from school to school. There is no just one encapsulated thing called boarding. It really needs to be explored and drilled down into for each school.
Definitely, and looking at sort of geographically where they are within the UK. Are they town-based? Are they country-based? Will that school be able to help with transport and helping children get to various places over a half term or during holidays? Or do you want your child very close to London, or very close to maybe some family friends, or any family that perhaps live in the vicinity? There's so many things to have a think about first before narrowing down, and some of those things might be quite a big priority for a family, rather than whether it's the top in the academics or on a league table. Perhaps what's most important to a family is where that school is, or and I think it's really, really important to know where your child, or where a family's child, is going to be happiest, and where they are going to feel most settled and a home away from home.
Another discussion that often comes up is the geography of the UK, as Emily just said, because very often one family won't just have one child in boarding school, they'll have two or more children, and we need to help them. Although we all think of Britain as being a small place, but it still takes a long time to get around. For example, if you've got a daughter at Badminton and a son at Bromsgrove, those schools are 5 hours drive apart, and Heathrow's in the middle. You've got an awful lot of driving to do in a strange country, and pretty foul weather sometimes. So all of these things, for the family to be able to operate and work well, and children to be able to settle in and get the really full value of what we're setting out to do, all of these things need to be talked through and explored while we've got time, so we don't get rushed into anything.
Right, and part of this preparation is also offered through the bespoke curriculum of the Wycombe Abbey School, right? Because you help prepare students for the next step of their schooling, regardless of where they go.
Yes.
Can you explain more about the curriculum?
I think so. Not necessarily the academic curriculum, but in terms of pastoral, preparing a child for that move. We often have small sort of chat groups, and we discuss any worries. We discuss what we might be excited about going to boarding school. And I think the main questions that I get from the children are not necessarily about, oh, what's it going to look like in a maths lesson or a science lesson? They know what that's going to look like. Lots of the questions are more, or worries are more about those times of day where they're not necessarily sitting in a classroom. It will be more about meal times and the evenings especially, or you know, worries about, I was speaking to one little girl the other day saying, I'm a bit worried about if I have somebody who is in my dormitory with me who snores at night and I can't go to sleep. And it's, you know, little questions like that it worries an 11-year-old, you know, and it's ironing out just little concerns, because the fewer sort of surprises for an 11, 12, 13-year-old, the more that they will feel prepared and settled. Whereas if there are sort of unexpected things that all of a sudden crop up that they weren't prepared for or anticipating perhaps, that's when anxiety can set in, and homesickness, and thinking, I don't feel settled here. Whereas if we can anticipate things like that and talk about them before they actually happen, I think that really, really settles the children a little bit, and then they know that the support network at these schools is absolutely amazing. There will always be somebody to talk to. There will always be friends around them. There will always be teachers to help. The support network is second to none.
Our academic curriculum here is based on, well, it is the British national curriculum, but it's enriched with the common entrance curriculum, which again is the same as the national curriculum, but it's just wider and it drills down further into the topics. So really the third aspect of the curriculum here has been taken from the Hong Kong primary EDB curriculum, which makes our curriculum, that's our 5 o'clock bell, it's the end of the day, which makes it relevant for Hong Kong children. So the geography examples will be about Hong Kong, Southeast Asia. A lot of the history is about Southeast Asia, China, Hong Kong, rather than studying the Napoleonic Wars all the time, something like that. So it's cultural content, or culturally relevant content. But the point is that the academic work here is exactly the same academic work that a child will be doing in a top British prep school, preparing for schools like Eton, Harrow, Cheltenham Ladies College, Wycombe Abbey, and all the others. We're doing the same work here. Same people, same staff, trained in the same places, same curriculum, same textbooks. Everything is the same, but it's here in Hong Kong. And because we're not an international school, we're a private school, there is no quota here. So it's for all Hong Kongers.
Right, and I think part of the academics and also cultural adjustment is the language barriers. But here at Wycombe Abbey, you offer a bit bilingual education to the students, where they're fluent in both English and Chinese, especially in simplified Chinese. So I was just wondering, can you talk more about the benefits of being fluent in these two languages?
Certainly. I mean, the benefits obviously are that you can speak well in two of the main business languages of the world. We are bilingual. We teach two languages, but we don't teach them in a bilingual format. So the school is an English medium school. We teach all of our subjects in English, modeled by British trained teachers speaking, if I may use you as an example,
yes.
British English. Although we're in Hong Kong, it's different to Hong Kong English, and it's, you know, when I was a child on a playground growing up in North London, our North London accents were quite strong, but we knew how to speak British English, received British English when we need to. You've got to know what you're aiming for in formal situations, just like children can speak beautiful formal Mandarin if they need to, but it's probably not the same Chinese that they speak in the playground or around the kitchen table at 5 o'clock in the evening. It sort of comes down to a more domestic level. Our Chinese teaching is given exactly the same amount of time on the timetable as English. It's modeled by Chinese linguist experts. We pump 2 teachers into every lesson, 7 lessons a week, and we have 2 not streams, but 2 ability groups, what you might call native speaking ability and non-native speaking ability. Bearing in mind a lot of our children are Cantonese speaking, so Mandarin Putonghua is new to them anyway. We do teach simplified characters, but because so much of our Chinese is based on Chinese literature, a lot of Chinese poetry, a lot of Chinese myths, legends and stories. The children are seeing traditional characters a lot and can see where the simplified characters come from. And those of them who are Cantonese educated, who are already writing in traditional script, are allowed to continue. If they can write, they can continue to write in traditional script. But moving forward, I have a horror of trying to be all things to all people. You've just got to decide what you're going to do and do that thing really well. So we teach 𝗚𝘂𝗀𝘁𝗁 with simplified characters because it is the language of business in Southeast Asia. And we are preparing young Hong Kongers to become the business and professional people in a decade's time in this part of the world, wherever they go for their secondary education or university.
I think it's important as well to be mindful that lots of these boarding schools in the UK and public schools in the UK do have a Chinese curriculum as well that can be followed, and they could do a GCSE in Mandarin, or it doesn't have to just stop as soon as they go to England. They've forgotten about their Chinese, their culture or whatever. No, I think that is something that the schools will try and get out of that child and really push them and make them carry on that part of their culture and their language. It's really important that they don't just forget about that part of their early education. I'm sure it would be continued as well.
I think that one of the big differences between our school, which is a private school in Hong Kong, and an international school is that an international school are largely there for expatriates. And the amount of time they give to Chinese, it will be an interest subject. So it might get 1 or 2 periods a week because it's very interesting to all of those expatriate children who probably won't be in Hong Kong for too many years before their families get moved somewhere else. We're a private school, we're here for Hong Kongers, and our children tend to stay a lot longer. Our teachers tend to stay a lot longer because they're not at an international school revolving around every 2 years. So it's a lot more staid, it's a lot more steady, and therefore we invest heavily in time. I really had to burgle an awful lot of time from other subjects to find equal amounts of time for English and Chinese and maths on the timetable. Those 3 subjects take up half the timetable of the week. We have 11 other subjects that get the other half of the timetable between them. And they all get a good showing of time. Things like STEM and drama and music, PE, science, they all have to be fitted in, geography and history and so on. And we do those very well. But we took the decision to invest in high quality time in those 3 core subjects.
Yeah, I do think it's very important to, be well versed in 2 languages. But aside from academics, how does Wycombe Abbey School help nurture other skills? So, for example, physical skills, social skills in students?
So our holistic education here is steeped in it's such a range of subjects that we offer. So, for example, in STEM lessons, there'll be, it's so much exploratory work and working as a group and collaboration and communication, and then the range into drama and music. The range of the subjects is amazing. But it's not just that; it's our ECA program as well that we offer. It really gives a child a chance to flourish and come out of their shell, and perhaps some might be more interested in various aspects, but it's the fact that we are offering a child, that whole range and letting them find their niche, perhaps. But I think that's really important that we're giving them that range of an education, and the curriculum being so broad is an amazing opportunity for them and a great start to their education journey.
We're offering 2 one-hour sessions of ECAs every afternoon across a whole range, as Emily was saying, but that covers more than 50 different clubs and activities. So you'd be hard-pressed to find something that didn't interest you.
I mean, it's great to hear that Wycombe Abbey is able to offer such an outstanding learning environment to students. And I'm sure Lily would agree as well. Let us hear from Lily to see what she has to say about her life at Wycombe Abbey.
What I look most forward to each day is, just coming to school and figuring out what I'll be learning in each class. Drama is definitely, without a doubt, my favorite subject because I get the opportunity to act and write scripts. The extracurricular activities I joined are 𝗚𝘂𝗀𝗁𝘁𝗁s and choir. In 𝗚𝘂𝗲𝘁𝗂𝗁s, we are basically in charge of the whole school's responsibility on the eco-friendly activities. For example, we hang posters up the wall talking about how global warming has impacted the world, and in choir, we basically build our trust in each other and build our confidence in singing.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lily. So I believe that we're nearing the end of our talk. So Howard and Emily, do you have any advice for parents and students who are looking to join Wycombe Abbey?
Well, we're here, we're open, they can come in for a tour any time. We're open to any admissions, and yeah, we would welcome them with open arms, and we would love to speak with any families who would like to come and join us here.
Exactly. I would hate any families to think that we're an institution, that they're speaking to some faceless organization. We are all about you. We are all about you and your children and your family. And in order to talk about that, please do just contact us. We'll have a cup of coffee and a chat in my office, meet people like Emily and other professionals who are here. Teachers, Emily is very much involved in the assessment of children. We keep our assessment really simple. We keep our interviewing really simple. We just need to know about the child. Everything we do is about the child and as friendly and as non-threatening as possible. Yet at the same time, we get really accurate and valuable information on which to base our advice in our office. So really, it's over to you. Please come and see us. You'll be very welcome, and we'd love to show you around.
If any parents are concerned about the English level of their child or anything as well, we do offer our intensive English program, which, you know, if they would be interested in that, we would provide them with more information about that side as well.
I mean, essentially, what Emily says is really important. So children who speak no English at all can come to this school, and we put them on an intensive English program in a specialist class. And our experience is already that after 6 months, those children are leaving that class and going into their own year groups, able to speak enough English that they can access the curriculum. So not being able to speak English is not a problem. We're geared up for that as well.
Awesome. So thank you again, Howard and Emily, for sharing
Pleasure.
your insights on helping students gain a competitive edge in the boarding school application process. And thank you, audience, for listening. We hope to see you in the next session.